Hey everybody, welcome to the Beaker Dev Diary number 3. So you'll remember from last week we talked about the file system, how it's used as your private data store, and also how you can run queries against it to kind of make it work almost like a database so that you can write applications against it. So just as a quick refresher, let's show that tool for running those queries. I'm going to jump over to a website I made real fast. If we look at the code here, this website is just a little bit of JavaScript, and it runs the navigator file system query function. And it's going to take all the files in my public drive and just dump them out into the console. And so if we look here, here are the results of that query. Right? And so this tool, this query function, is really pretty powerful. It lets us pull together file entries from multiple different locations. So I'm going to now grab all of my friends' files as well. And that gets us 16 entries. So here's all of my stuff: public feed, public thumb.jpg, the friends folder, and then inside of my friends folder I've got Bob and Alice. And Bob has 1, 2, 3, 4 files. Alice has 1, 2, 3, 4 files of her own. So this ends up being a pretty powerful way for us to pull information out of our personal file system. And because of the mounting, which again we talked about last week in Dev Diary number 2, you are able to basically compose together lots of different hyperdrives to form one file system that views information from all across the internet. So today what I'm going to show is something that we worked on over the last week, which is a kind of a file, actually, a special kind of file called .view files. And .view files basically encode these queries so that whenever the Files Explorer visits the .view file, it'll actually run that query and then present the results as if you're looking at a folder. So it's a way to kind of create dynamically generated folders. And there are a couple of interesting tricks we can do with it. So let's jump over to one of these view files real fast. Now at the root of my personal drive here, in my home drive, I've got 3 views. The first one I'm going to show is the people.view. So again, what we're looking at is the File System Explorer, the Files Explorer. And these are 3 different entries here for 3 different personal drives. We got mine right here, and then we've got my 2 friends, Bob and Alice. You can actually see the query over on the right. And what it's doing is it's looking at the public drive, and then it's looking at the contents of the /public/friends folder, and only getting the mounts. And then it's assembling them together into this listing. And so basically what we're able to do is bring together multiple different locations in my file system to create this view here of all the people in my network. So /public is me, and then /public/friends, those are all my friends, and that's Bob and Alice. Again, it's actually a file that we're looking at, people.view. So if we open up the editor, we'll actually see what that file looks like. Currently, every view file has just an attribute saying it's a view file and specifying its version. So this is the version 1 of a view file. Here's that query that we're running, looking for mounts at these locations. And then there's a little bit of information that's specific to the Files Explorer. So suppose we wanted to change the definition of this so that not only does it show myself and my friends, but also friends of friends. As it turns out, I don't have any friends of friends right now, because this is all just a test data set. But if we wanted to, we could just add in the friends of friends, and they would also show up in this listing. So this is a pretty handy way to get a look at the people that are in your network, your people you're following, and so on and so forth. And eventually we'll get like a search tool in there so you could actually filter it down. So there's a nice kind of example use case for the view files. Let's look at another one. This was the one that first made us think that a view file would be cool, and this is the feed view. So in this scenario, what we're doing is we're just taking, if you look at the query, actually you can tell pretty quickly what we're doing. We're taking all the files inside of my feed folder, and we're listing them. And then we're also taking all of the files from my friends' feed folders, and we're sorting them together by creation time, and then reversing it so that it's the most recent first. So here we have a picture that Bob put into his feed, and here he wrote hello.txt, just seeing if it works. Here I put a markdown file, hello.md, and markdown gets rendered in line. And so we basically are able to throw together a poor man's social media app, really, using this. So to kind of demonstrate that a little bit more, why don't we jump over to Alice's profile. And this is all test data, so I actually can write to Alice. And let's create a folder for her. It's the feed folder, so she can participate here. And we'll just throw in a file, hello.txt. Okay, save that, and then if we go back to our feed view, it should show up right at the top. So that is, pretty much the simplest social media application you could ever hope to write. And it kind of demonstrates why we think these .view files are a neat tool. They're a way to throw together these views of your network and your file system and almost kind of create miniature applications. And eventually, it hasn't been done yet, but we're going to have the ability to write comments on files and annotations and things like that. So there's a little UI for over on the right here showing where the commenting feature would be in the future. So you could have comments and discussion right through the Files Explorer. Okay, so that's the feed view. There's one other kind of .view file I'm going to show, and this one uses a feature called merging. So this is a kind of an experiment. We're not really sure if this is going to work out in the long run, but we wanted to give it a shot. In both the people view and in the feed.view, both of those basically take all of the files that are found and renders them all out. And so if there are any files with matching names, like as is the case here, Bob has a hello.txt and Alice has a hello.txt, they both show up. They're not, these duplicates are not merged together in any way. For a feed, that's what you want, right? You don't want them to merge together. But let's say you had something like a documentation folder, and you wanted to collaborate on it with somebody else, and so the idea was, all right, well, we're going to work together on this documentation folder, and so whoever's made the most recent version of it, of a file inside of this documentation folder, we want that most recent version to show. Now, to do that really well, we need a feature inside of the protocol called multi-writer. And that feature would use these advanced data structures called CRDTs to make sure that the information is merged together correctly. But that requires some protocol features that aren't going to be done for a little bit yet. And so what we've done with the .view files is put together a kind of a poor man's merging system. And so I'm going to go over to docs.view and show this now. And so what this does is it just takes, whenever you find two files with the exact same name from different authors, it'll take the one that is has the most recent timestamp on it. And you can see that that's going on because over here it says merging folders by mtime. Mtime means the modified time. So if I open up the editor and turn that mode off real fast, you can see there's actually two versions of hello.txt. One by me and one by Alice. And you can see down in the preview, this one says, hello, this is by Paul, and this one says, hello, this is by Alice. But Alice's was written at 12:28 p.m., whereas mine is at 12:27. So if I turn the merging back on, you'll see Alice's wins. And as a result, we're able to merge together my docs folder and my friends' docs folder and get something that looks like a single listing of files with no conflicting names. Again, we just think this is going to be a handy feature for, a form of collaboration. We will see if it works well enough. If it turns out to be more confusing than it is helpful, we'll remove it. But let's just demonstrate real fast how this feels to use. So if I overwrite the one by Paul and then go back to the view, we'll see that that one is now the most recent. And let's turn on the inline view. And so there you have it, merged together view files. So this is useful inside of the Files Explorer. But there's one other way that this is kind of handy, and that is that these .view files could actually be integrated into much more of the stack than just the Files Explorer. We are still kind of figuring out exactly how this will work, but one use case you can imagine is actually using these .view files inside of applications where you hand the .view to an app and say, hey, this is the data set that I want you to use. To give an example of that, I'm going to jump over to an application I made earlier. Really, it's a website, a .view renderer. And this is a pretty simple little app. When I click the select button, it's going to open a file selection dialog that Beaker implements. And I'm going to give it the path to one of my .view files. It's going to read and parse the file that I give it, and then it's just going to run that query that's inside the file. So you see it pulls out the view file by reading the file and parsing it, and it'll get the view file, and then it's just going to run query using the .query from the view file, and then it's just going to render that output to the page. So let's go ahead and give that a run, and we'll hand it the docs.view, and there you see the two document files that are inside of that are kind of matched by that view. Let's choose another one, the feed, and there are all my feed files. So you can kind of imagine how these .view files could be used in more than just the Files Explorer. They could be used by lots of different applications as a way to kind of share data sets in a way. So I know if I give the feed.view file, whatever application reads it, will pull out all the exact same files that any other application uses that is given the feed.view. So that's .view files. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover this week. We did a couple of other things you may notice from compared to last week. The Files Explorer has updated fairly significantly. There's lots of little details to get done there. That pretty much wraps it up for this week. So I'll see y'all all online, and I'll keep tweeting about whatever I'm working on. Not sure what I'm going to talk about at the next Dev Diary. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.